Welcome to Coffee and a Weather Map with Jeff. It's Wednesday, August 6th, 2025. So looking at the current weather maps, we start off with the upper air map. You can see kind of a zonal flow trying to get in there as this very weak sort of blocking pattern moves out over lower Michigan, and well, Michigan in general, and into northern Ontario. We have high pressure down in the desert southwest, and that's making things relatively hot for even them. And the rest of the area is under pretty much high pressure, or like I said, a west-east flow in the northwest part of the United States. As we take a look at the surface map this morning at 5 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and 4 a.m. Central Daylight Time. The only things that we kind of note are the stalled stationary, stalled stationary boundary. That would be the stationary front there along the Gulf Coast that goes out into the Atlantic. There's several little waves of low pressure there to kind of contend with over the next couple of days. We'll get into that with the tropical talk. We have a area of low pressure trying to come in on shore. I was reading one blog from a professor at University of Washington, whose name escapes me right now. Cliff Mass, and he was talking about how there's a setup for a river event there in the Pacific Northwest coming up. And then we do have an area of low pressure in North Dakota with fronts that trail back into Nebraska and then over into southern Wyoming and then across the Intermountain region. We'll take a look at some of this as well, since that will come up in the SPC part of things. And you see that low that comes in off of the Pacific Northwest and the low that comes out of the Rockies. They kind of move across, and we end up spurring waves of thunderstorms that kind of go through. They'll get into Michigan by Friday. So let's take a look here. Kind of take a look at what's going on across the country at this point. At 12:20 UTC, so about 7 minutes ago when I refreshed the page. As you see, the Upper Great Lakes primarily has the air quality alerts. There are some fog issues where you see some of the special weather statements, like in Kentucky and central North Dakota. There's another set of air quality alerts there along the East Coast and around upstate New York. Again, all that's due to Canadian wildfires. There are still flood issues as you're in central North Carolina and Georgia. And then going a little bit further to the west, we have heat advisories in Texas and New Mexico. You get into Arizona, and they're in extreme heat warnings, as well as then in desert Southern California, and getting closer to the coast, it's heat advisories. And then north of that, in the Intermountain region, where we have lots of dry air and wind, we have red flag warnings and fire weather watches across that area. And there's even a few heat advisories in that area as well. All right, day one on SPC. Things look to be, well, I wouldn't say benign. There's still a marginal chance for severe weather there from South Dakota and northern Nebraska all the way east into most of the state of Iowa and northern Missouri. Otherwise, most of the area is under general thunderstorms. There is also a marginal there along the boundary waters in northern Minnesota. Day two, however, as that system that's in the Pacific, moves ashore and then starts getting into some of the Canadian prairies. There is a slight risk there for the Dakotas, as well as the marginal that surrounds it from Minnesota, as far south as Nebraska as well, and then over into Montana. Day 3, that system, because it's kind of wound up, as I would say, it's occluding, so you've got a big spinning low surface to and up vertically up through the atmosphere. So not just through 500 millibars where we usually look for most of the steering currents, but up through 200 millibars, which is the top of the troposphere. You got a nice big area of low pressure, and so that is helping to create an enhanced risk on day 3, which you don't usually see very often. Usually things are just enough uncertain. There's enough uncertainty that things aren't exactly going to pan out that way. But at this point, it does look like that is a possibility. Looking at the WPC excessive rainfall outlook maps, we go on day 1, we see that there are 2 areas to be concerned with. Well, actually, let's do this one. We'll use the FEMA regions because it can get us in a little bit closer to the areas that are concerning. We do have a slight risk there in the Carolinas, down the coast into coastal Georgia, just north of Florida, and marginal areas surround that all the way back into eastern Tennessee and into southern Alabama. Just to be on the lookout as that area of low pressure and that front that's kind of stalled along the Gulf Coast is out there, as well as then a tropical wave coming in. So lots of moisture starts to increase that risk as you get into the coastal areas. Also, the other region to be concerned with is where there's some of those thunderstorms, and we do have a marginal risk out there in the Midwest. All right, on day 2, we have marginals in the same areas. We were looking at that SPC area where there is a slight risk up there in the Dakotas. We do have a marginal risk for excessive heavy rain, and the excessive heavy rain continues there on the East Coast with that area stalled boundary that's just offshore in the Atlantic, but it cuts all the way back across a good portion of the Gulf Coast. But as that system does try to start moving off to the east a bit, we will start to lessen the effects of that. All right, day 3 doesn't look like there's as much concern as we do have for severe weather in the Dakotas with that enhanced risk. Today, or for day 3, which would be on the 8th through the 9th, we are looking at marginal risk of flash flooding along the Canadian border from northern Montana all the way into northern Minnesota, and then south into Iowa. And then also we continue that marginal risk along the eastern seaboard from about Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia, all the way south into northern Florida. Here's the tropical outlook. We have Dexter still out there. We'll just click on Dexter real quick and show that it is still projected to continue to move off to the east and north. So as a tropical storm, it's had enough support to keep it going as a tropical storm, but it doesn't really have enough support in the upper levels to really let it get going. Plus the water's a little bit colder. It's moving into colder waters as it is, so it probably won't be able to spin up into a hurricane. Otherwise, we have the 2 areas that we've been concerned with here over the last couple of days. Both are medium risks. I think if we scan down through 7 days, the one off the southeast coast is a 40%. It's currently at a 10% for 48 hours. And then the one out in the main development region, still showing at 50% over 7 days with a 10% chance in the next 48 hours. I was showing that tropical wave. This is that tropical wave that it's where the X is at, and it is expected, at least, there's a 50% chance that if it's going to develop, it'll develop in that orange hatched area over the next couple of days when it gets into there. Probably not within the next 2 days, but after that is when we're expecting it. And then again, as I said, there's that low that's sitting there off the coast. And then if we can get enough thunderstorm support in there along the front, they can have a tendency, especially with that very warm water there with the Gulf Stream, that there would be a chance for something to spin up, which we've seen a lot of this year. There's been more of these types of things with, I guess it was Chantal, and then we had a couple of invests that have kind of spun up there and then tried to move along the Gulf Coast as well. So this will be a concern here over the next couple of days. Let's jump into our forecast then for the local areas. High temperatures across lower Michigan today are expected to be in the mid to upper 80s. The upper 80s are surprisingly almost to 90 degrees in Grand Rapids, are going to be in the western part of the state. The winds aren't necessarily coming out of the west, though. They would probably give a little bit more of a cooling effect, like you see there right on the lakeshore, where temperatures are probably in the mid to lower 80s. Luckily, that's where I am currently. Otherwise, that will continue to warm up here over the next couple of days as that heat starts to drift across the northern part of the United States as it's warming up a lot of places to the south. And then looking at Friday's high temperatures, again, we're still warmer with upper 80s to around 90 degrees across the entire lower peninsula, and even getting into above 90 out in the western part of the UP. All right, chances for rain today across the lower peninsula. You see that a good portion of the area is at 20% or less, but we do have some rain showers and thunderstorms that are expected to start popping there in the eastern part of the state, roughly along I-75 and US 23. That whole corridor from basically Lansing also eastward, it has a moderate chance for precipitation going on. And then that wave that's up north looks like it's going to try and get into the western UP here later today. As I was saying, Friday looks like we will start seeing some of that. That's when the Dakotas have more of their slight risk during that period. We have a marginal to, well, up in the UP there is, but in lower Michigan, general thunderstorms, but the rain is likely. Basically, M55 north, that we've got 60 to 70% chance for rain over those areas. As you get further south, there's a moderate chance across the area from about M55 down to about 96, and then south of there we are in a 20 to 25% chance, 20 to 30% chance. They're going up into the thumb as well, but on the west side of the state, getting down to the Indiana border. That was actually Thursday. Now we're on Friday. I get my time things because this is a 24-hour probability ending on Saturday morning now, so it's for Friday and Friday night. And we see that that system continues to bring precipitation primarily to northern lower Michigan, although a good portion of lower Michigan could see there's a chance for showers and thunderstorms getting into the thumb, continuing on during that time. There's more showers and thunderstorms expected in Wisconsin and in the UP as well. In South Texas, our highs today will be roughly where they have been over the last several days and going back almost into the last week. We have upper 80s along the beaches. You start getting into the lower 90s there in the coastal plains, starting to warm up as you head a little bit further west and getting into the brush country where we start to push 100 until we get way out into the western part of the brush country in the Rio Grande Plains where temperatures are 100 to 105. For Thursday, things continue to get warmer as we look at Thursday high temperatures. The 100-degree mark continues to move a little bit more to the east as that ridge starts to break down and push some of that hot air a little bit more to the east as well, out of the desert southwest where they're having the extreme heat days. You can see we're still 100 to 105 out in the western part, and our areas of 90 and lower 90s right along the shoreline, along the coastal bend, are starting to shrink as we get more of that mid to upper 90s starting to encroach on everything. And then Friday looks like we continue that streak. Looks like that we will probably be upper 80s to lower 90s there along the coastal bend. The rest of the coastal plains will be 95 to 100 as we get 100 there by Lake Corpus Christi and Mathis. Alice also will be right around 100 or slightly above that. As you get further to the west, we are definitely going to be in the hundreds, and temperatures will be 100 to 105 as you get out in the Rio Grande Plains, with Laredo coming in at 106. All right, over the next 24 hours for today and tonight in South Texas, low chances for precipitation unless you're there north of Rockport, going up into the Victoria Crossroads. A 25 to 45% chance for rain coming through that area. Most of it should probably be during the afternoon, and I would suspect it's mostly timed with whatever is left there with the energy from that system that's in Louisiana starting to move a little east. We start to lose some of the forcing there, and so the sea breeze has just enough to kick off maybe a few showers and thunderstorms there along the southern part of the coastal bend. So we're talking about areas from Kingsville up to Corpus Christi and then to Rockport, where we have that change of color on the map. And the further inland you go, then the precipitation chances continue to fall till you're out in the brush country, pretty much in your less than 20% chance. For Thursday and Thursday night, those chances continue to move out. So for South Texas itself, looking at the Victoria Crossroads, you're right in the 20 to maybe 30% range there with that little patch of red. Otherwise, everything just starts to fall off. Most of it will be during the afternoon on Thursday, and then the further out to the west you get, then it's less than 10% for most of the brush country and the Rio Grande Plains. And finally, it looks like most of the rain chances should have moved off to the east with that system, and we are going to be maybe 20% in Victoria. We get a tendency to have a little bit of rain that tries to form there as you get into southeast Texas. Otherwise, the rest of the region looks like it's 10% or less for any chances of precipitation. And that's it. Have a great day. If you are interested in more of this content, like and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Follow me here on Facebook and Instagram, as well as on X. On X, you'll find more information because I do have the offices that are responsible for Lower Michigan and South Texas to go through my feed as well automatically. So if you're always interested to see what's going on in the weather in those areas, that's it. If you would like a more personalized brief, let me know. We can work something out. And with that, have a great day.